Black and white, happy ending when nobody fights. So if you find yourself in that nostalgic rage, now you jump right up and show your age. I wish I had pencils and mustache, lost black hair kind, two-tone Rick car. Hey, welcome to the I Must Ask You a Question show. I'm Tim Nichols. I'm with 3 Million%, and we're a peer advisory group that helps business owners, entrepreneurs, and professionals learn from each other's experiences and help each other grow. So I want to introduce to you Jim Bardwell. Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you, Tim. Jim Bardwell here. I'm the Executive Director for Sales, Marketing, and Education for a product called Fiber Protector. It is a high-end textile sealant imported all the way from Norway here in the United States. And I tell you, we've had a interesting last few months, haven't we all? But what a great morning I've had so far. Talked to folks from Mexico to Canada to all over North America. And one thing you cannot do, Tim, you can't keep good folks down. We're doing what we have to do. We're doing what we need to do. We're doing what we should do, but we're also making sure that our minds, our hearts are in the right place for success.
That is so true, Jim. And today, to help people be better prepared for success, we're going to talk about asking great questions, especially those we're trying to get to know. I mean, two of the biggest challenges right now for businesses are creating new relationships and converting those relationships to revenue streams. So let's talk a little bit about asking good questions. Give us some insight, Jim.
Well, again, last week we talked about mentorship, right? And I said, well, the challenge is most of us find ourselves in mentor or mentee positions completely by accident, right? When there's no forethought to it, we just end up with the people we end up with. Same thing with asking questions. It amazes me, Tim. And some of these people were very learned people. I'm talking people with degrees in law, degrees in medicine, degrees in science. And they would go into a networking opportunity or a business, discussion type situation with no forethought, with no plan of what questions they were going to ask, no motivation, no vision really about what they were even there for. So of course, everybody walks around asking the same question. Ready for it, Tim? Here it is. Yep. It's especially as a Southern gentleman, we know all about this question, right? Well, nice to meet you. How are you doing?
Right.
That's it. That's where we start at. How are you doing? And of course, everybody never answers that truthfully. It's always the same answer. I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing? Oh, I'm doing good. Right.
Yeah.
Except when went into an old farmer, he didn't ever tell you he was doing good. He'd always say, "Oh, fair to middling." Yeah, he right. Old farmers, they were never doing good. There was never enough rain, never enough sun, too much rain. I mean, it was always never perfect. But that's what we go into these meetings. We're prepared to say, like we're a doctor, how are you feeling today? Like that's the only thing we're prepared to ask.
That's right. Well, I think a lot of times people go into these networking events, or even now, since we haven't been able to network really in person for months now, going into some of these virtual networking groups or even these one-on-one conversations that we might be having. I think a lot of times we get lost in the superficial. Mm-hmm. You get caught up in trying to come up with what to say, what to ask. Right. So we go to the how are you doing thing. Right. And that's a main go-to. And then what else you go to? Sports. Well, no real sports right now. Maybe high school graduation, maybe kids in college or something like that. Maybe weather. Right. But mm-hmm. One thing I would encourage people to do is know why you're having the conversation.
Absolutely.
What do you hope to get out of that?
Jim, you ever go to network meet and realize that you say, wait a minute. Did I come to the wrong room? I think I'm in a convention for meteorologists. It's all everybody's talking about here is the weather. What are we a bunch of weathermen? I mean, what's going on in here, right?
Yeah, very true. Very true. So, I always encourage people to have a goal. Have a goal when you go into these things of what are you going to get out of this? Okay. So I think that should guide how we ask questions, whether it be to maybe set 4 appointments going into a networking event, or even on one of these calls or something like that. Have a goal and let that drive your questions as to what you're going to ask. What might that sound like?
Yeah, exactly. Well, again, what is the purpose what is the reason that most people attend any type of function that we're talking about, Tim? We talked about it last week.
They're trying to meet people.
They're trying to meet people. And they drove the whole way over there, Tim, and the whole time they were driving there, they were going, man, I can't wait to meet Jim Bardwell so I can help him. That's not what they were saying. The whole way over there, they were going, man, I hope I get something out of this meeting.
That's right.
I hope this meeting helps my business. I hope this meeting helps me meet people. There's a whole bunch of reasons they're going. They're not going there to help you. They're going there to help themselves. And so what I always try and do is I figure out a way, well, wait a minute. What is a good question I can ask someone that then I'll be put in a position to help them? What can I ask that has nothing to do with me and has everything to do with them and their needs? Right. And that really is not that hard. A lot of people think it's so hard. It really isn't, because there's a lot of commonality in needs. If you're at a business networking meeting, odds are they're there to grow their business. Right. Odds are they're there for the same reason you are. They want to expose their business to new potential clients, new potential customers. Right. So, Tim, so if you went into a networking meeting and you walked up to somebody, you were getting to know them, you were introducing yourself, and you don't want to, one thing you and I talked about before the call, you also don't want to come across, you want to make sure you're genuine. You must first check yourself. You must first look in the mirror. And I would do this. I would look in the mirror in the men's room before I would walk into the room, and I'd look myself in the face and say, why are you here? Okay. And because if you truly believe the way Tim and I believe, that really that room can give you everything you need, if you just dedicate yourself to giving that room everything you've got, right? You can get anything you want. You help everybody in that room get what they want. They're going to help you get what you want. And so when I walk in there and I think, okay, I am here on a mission to help these people get what they want. They want more customers, right? And so what a fun question I ask, and again, you don't open with this. You do some pleasantries. How are you? Where are you from? Right? You build that camaraderie there. But a question I used to love asking, I would say, so in my business, my perfect potential client looks, dresses, and talks like this. What does yours look, dress, and talk like?
That's an interesting way to put that.
Yeah. And Tim, I've had people, you know what's crazy about that question? I've had people look at me and go, I don't know. You don't know? Well, that could be 12 of them walking by you right now. You wouldn't know because you don't know. You know what I mean? It's kind of a fun thing to get going. And I've had people stop me right there and say, that is a great question. That's a great question. Right. I probably should be able to answer that in about 3 or 4 sentences, shouldn't I? I said, that'd be a good one to know. So yeah. How about you, Tim? Do you use a formula, or do you use what is your, like I said before in the call too, Tim and I were talking about that we're not big fans of scripting, especially not in a social environment like that. Phones, maybe so, yeah, but not a big fan of scripting. But what about you? Do you use some kind of overlay or something?
So what I was always trying to do in my conversations, keep in mind, when I was doing this at the height of what I was doing, I was a financial advisor. And so a lot of that comes with profiling, trying to find out, where they work, how they work, if they've had a job change, maybe if they have a retirement plan somewhere else or something like that. But you don't want to bring that stuff up. And gosh, nobody was there to buy anyway, right?
Right.
Everyone there was there to sell. And so when I changed my focus as to, going back to that Ziegler quote, like you were saying earlier, you can have everything you want in life if you'll help enough other people get what they want. So I changed my conversation to help figure out what they want or need as to how I could help them faster grow their business. They weren't there to buy, they were there to sell. I wanted to help them sell, but I needed to know who their target was and how to introduce them even to a referral source So, big thing for me was to know why I was having that conversation. That was usually it, right? Is to help them engage even in the room. And then, building credibility was a big thing for me. So we were trying to deepen relationships quickly, elevate my profile within the community, leverage networks, build credibility, and establish community. And if I could apply all 5 of those in one conversation, that's what I was trying to do. So the most urgent thing I felt like I needed to do was find someone or something in common. So that's how my question started off. Maybe what they did for work. So I was going through, I was basically trying to be like LinkedIn and trying to figure out who do I know in common in that industry that I could plug them into, or might be a potential buyer for them, right? Or I would go to maybe their hometown. So let's say I didn't know anyone in their industry, and I was just thinking, how can I just work through and find that someone or something in common? It was more important to me to find someone in common than it was something, because that someone would imply credibility, right? Now, I have been in situations where the someone did not imply the right kind of credibility for me.
Right.
It might have been someone we both wished we could forget. And so,
but that still built up. It still built up, a community over that.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. And so, I would go to that someone and something in common, maybe their hometown. Maybe I spent some time there. Maybe I had some previous clients there from a previous career or something along those lines. So I was going for the someone or something in common. And then, so I didn't want to feel like I was profiling them. So I would try to alternate between fact-based responses versus emotion-based responses. Too many fact-based, it turns into profiling. Too many emotion-based, it turns into counseling. I've been in either one, and it isn't good either way.
No, yeah. Not at a networking meeting. No.
That's right. So what's your take on that?
That's fantastic. And that's exactly what we're talking about. It's, again, I was in the military, and sometimes you've got a lot of time to plan. You've got a lot of time to come up with a plan for your mission. You've given some parameters by the commanders. They say, this is what you need to do. You need to go back, and you guys come up with some ideas of how to accomplish the mission. You're going to pitch that to your superiors, and they're going to pick a plan. Okay. If anybody's ever seen military, war movies, you see where sometimes they do that. You had to go pitch your idea to the general, right? And he would pick the one he saw that had the most, chance of winning. And so the worst thing you can do is to go in any situation without a plan, without a thought process, without a purpose for being there. Okay.
Right.
Especially right now. People are living in quicksand. The foundations, that we thought were our bedrock has turned to sand. Okay.
Yep.
And we can debate all day long whether that's good or bad. I think it's a mixture of both. I think there's going to be some growth. There's going to be some new roads that open up to people that they never even thought they needed to go down, right? There's going to be challenges. We're all going through challenges. But right now, people want to know that there is a reason that they're doing things. There's a purpose behind it. And I've been to so many networking meetings that I left out of there, and I go, what was that? What was that all about? We didn't do anything. Nothing was accomplished. Nothing. You just feel empty. You just feel like I just wasted time. Getting to know you, Tim, you told me that was one of the first things you found out about a lot of chambers across the United States. They had lost their purpose. Mm-hmm. They had just denigrated down into a supper club, or lunch. Yeah, they all got together and ate lunch. Other than that, what was the purpose, right? And I think a lot of networking meetings can be that way. And so if you go in there with a plan, you're going to accomplish a lot more. You're going to give purpose to some of those people you speak to. They won't even realize what you did, right, Tim? They won't realize what happened. They'll just walk out and go, man, that conversation with Tim, that seemed kind of productive. It seemed like we accomplished a few things, right?
That's right. And really, they don't realize what is happening. But a lot of times, if you just stay quiet and listen, they're going to tell you more, And so what is like our next topic here is encouraging them to talk. what are some things you do to encourage them to talk? Because sometimes they're nervous, they're afraid, something like that, or they're afraid they're being sold to. So how do you approach that?
Well, again, it depends on how important you think all this stuff is. To me, it's really important. And so I read a lot about this, and I've studied a lot about this, and I've been to a lot of seminars in school about this. There are many things you can do to put people at ease. Most people will talk if they feel comfortable. If they feel uncomfortable, they will not talk. Most people do not like to talk if they feel like there's something to lose.
Right.
Most people will love to talk if they feel there's something to gain. So first and foremost, I need to make sure that they feel as though that their time they're going to invest with me will produce a gain for them.
Right.
Okay. I don't make up these rules. I just live by them. Okay. The reason that you and I put emphasis on being a person of interest, both in dress and topics and information and benefit, right, is because people will talk to somebody that they feel is interesting.
That's right.
Okay. They will want to learn more about you, and they will want to talk to you about things. So first and foremost, I take that into serious account. I want to make sure that they're put in a position where they're comfortable. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Some little things, people don't think about these things. People get uncomfortable if you get too close to them. People get uncomfortable if you touch them too soon. People get uncomfortable if you ask something from them too soon. There's all these little things which create uncomfortability. In this modern world we live in, we've got to be conscious. There's certain preset uncomfortability things that are going to be there that we've got to overcome. Okay.
Right.
And so I would say that the first thing I'm going to make sure and do is make them comfortable with me, to make myself approachable, pleasant, not overpowering, not aggressive, not overly passive. It's a fine line, but that would be the first thing. I need to make them comfortable so that they will talk.
That goes back to the finding someone or something in common, because you want to come across as we're the same, right? You could be in completely different industries. Let's say if, and this works well, even if you had like let's say an entrepreneur that was just starting out trying to talk to the CEO of a bank, right? The entrepreneur that's starting out is probably going to be a little bit intimidated by that, right? But if you would just ask questions to find that common ground, things even out a lot faster, right? And it makes both of you more comfortable, right? But the big challenge is getting through the guards. A lot of times they have this wall up, they're afraid they're going to be sold to.
That's right. That's right. Again, I'm a bit of a history buff, and in olden times, there was not the ease of communication we have today.
Right.
So your name did not precede you. Okay. People didn't know who you were. If you were going from small town to small town in America at the turn of the century, in your old, Model T Ford, bouncing down the dirt roads, and your job was to go from town to town and sell something, it would usually be a good idea to have what's called a letter of introduction. Well, that simply was a piece of paper that had somebody's name on it that everybody knew, right? Like it was an important name, like maybe the mayor or the governor or somebody that they would go, okay, I don't know him, he's a stranger, but I know this person. And if this person is okay. And so how do you do that? Well, one of the ways I do that is through association. I make sure they know that I'm associated with good people. Okay. People say, Jim, why did you become Zig Ziglar certified? And Zig Ziglar is a great name to be associated with. Why did you go study under Dr. Robert Rome? Well, if I'm going to talk about DISC, he's a well-known DISC authority, right? Mm-hmm. So there's power in association, and you can micro associate. Even just the idea, if I go to a networking meeting I've never been to, and I don't know anybody, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look around that room, and like you, if I didn't know you, I would walk up and get to know you real quick, because you could probably take me around that room and introduce me to everybody, and then everybody would be put at ease, and I would be accepted into that circle.
That's right. And we've actually got some of those people on the call with us that do that. And so that's pretty, it sounds profound to some people, right? But then again, until you see it, until you feel it, you don't know, you know? And so, I'd say Sarah Naylor is one of those that is become a champion of that, right? She goes into events and now just goes to plugging people in, right? But a lot of people just don't think that way, and so that is such a powerful, powerful thing. And it goes back to that authenticity too, right? If we can just be authentic, something I bring up sometimes in talks. You talk about studying history and things like that. Do you know who William Dawes was?
William Dawes. William Dawes.
Don't mean to put you on the spot like this, but I'm kind of making an example here.
Yeah.
He also rode with Paul Revere, yelling, "The British are coming! The British are coming!" Now you probably remember that history, but he actually did what everybody else thought Paul Revere did. He rode through the communities. He took the South Side, and he rode through those communities yelling, "The British are coming." And those were the very people that got captured by the British, right? But Paul Revere's people, because he had been a messenger for the Boston Committee on Correspondence and the Massachusetts Committee of Safety, he already knew who the key people in the room were, right? Or in those communities. And he went straight to those, I call them transformers. Social media, we call them influencers. But he went straight to those people and said, "Hey, we need to get the word out on this." And they took that message to the community, right? So he knew who to go to in the room, right? If you will. And so
he didn't run through the countryside screaming and hollering. Yeah,
that's right. He didn't even have to scream and holler. And those people in those communities that he went to met the British out in the battlefield, like at 3 a.m.
Yep.
They were ready because he knew who to go to. And I think a lot of times, even going into a room, this kind of brings up something else. Knowing who your audience is in that room, right? Who do you need to speak to? Why do you need to speak to them? Right? Maybe they could make great introductions for you.
That's right. And I've seen the what I call the masters of the practice. Certain people just become masters at something, right? And to truly master a trade, truly become proficient at a trade, they say it takes 25 years. 25 years is when you would become an apprentice of something, and then you would become a journeyman. Well, to truly be a master plumber or a master electrician or a master a goldsmith or what have you, 25 years was the average. Okay. So I don't throw around that moniker lightly, but I've seen people that are just true practitioner of the art of what we're talking about. And one of the tools they will often use is when they meet somebody new, to elevate their position, to make that person think that they're worth talking to, that this is somebody I should know, is listen to what that person says for a little bit. And then you say, "Oh my gosh, I've got somebody I've got to introduce you to. I know somebody who would just love to meet you." And I've seen people do that. And I tell you again, if it is genuine and you really do make that connection, you really do put those two people together in your mind and think they could actually benefit one another even more so than I can. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just put up the listen well banner because you said it. You've got to listen for those opportunities, though, and I keep like this, this, I don't know, it kind of scrolls through my head as I'm listening to someone talk, right? As they give me details, maybe about what they do, how they do it, who they know, where they're from, something like that, I am just scrolling. Who do I introduce them to? Especially in the room, right? I've seen an introduction turn into business in the room. And that's been pretty cool to watch, and it really converts transforms the whole feel of the room, right? Especially to anybody who's overheard that or seen it happen. And then everybody wants to know who you are.
Right.
That's right.
And so, that's kind of the importance, even going to some of these conferences or anything like that. I always started from the outside and worked my way in and started trying to figure out who needed to know who and all that kind of stuff, have a strategy behind that. But it's ideal if you can take those people, if you already know some of the key players in the room, take those from the outside and start introducing them to the people who are, I'm going to say, the regulars at that room, or people in positions of importance.
That's
Right.
right.
And I think it really has an effect on them.
Well, a good poker player will tell you this, that everybody has a tell, right? And if you practice, and the only way to practice is to practice, right? You can't read about it in a book. You can get Poker Playing for Dummies and read it cover to cover to cover. And if you go out to Las Vegas, you're going to lose all your money. Okay, right? The only way you're gonna get proficient in anything is to practice, be a practitioner of your trade. And if you're going to be a good listener, then you have to practice listening.
Right.
And you have to practice listening with a purpose. To be a good listener is not a passive sport. To be a good listener does not mean you just become a bump on a log, that you just sit there and, right? You just sit there and I'm just going, being a good listener is just that, just listening. That's really not what people want. If people wanted a good listener, they talk to themselves. What people want is they want an active participant in communication.
That's right.
It's something as simple as just nodding your head. As they're speaking, that lets them know that I'm hearing you, right? Okay.
That's right.
Facial expressions, we can show interest or we can show absolute sheer boredom. And we never have to say a word. I have a good friend. His name is Howard Partridge. Some of you guys might know Howard. Howard is so good at this. When he listens to you, next time you're around Howard, Tim, I want you to you can't help but pay attention. When I say this, you'll be looking at him like, he's so good at this. Okay. So what he will do, he has like 4 or 5 of them I just know by heart. Okay. He squinches up his eyes. That's Howard listening intently.
Right.
Okay. And then he moves into Howard listening intensively. And that's even more so. So the eyes get really squished down like this. And then the hand goes up to his face. If Howard starts doing that, you're going to keep talking. You're not going to stop talking in the middle and say, have you ever seen a conversation, again, those from the South, we see this all the time. 2 people will be talking, and then all of a sudden that the person that's talking will stop and go, oh, listen, I'm boring you to death. I shouldn't be, I'm taking up all your time. I'm boring you to death. Why did they say that? You know why? Because they're a good person, they're polite, and they just saw the look on your face going, you know what I mean? You gave them some subtle cue that they were boring you to death. I promise you, if you're sitting there, you're talking, somebody's going, you're not going to look at them and go, oh, I'm boring you to death. You ain't boring them to death. They're waiting for the punchline,
That's right.
So yeah, it's an active sport. Listening means engagement. It means being there and giving them subtle cues that, yes, keep going with that. I'm hearing what you're saying. That's another old Southern saying. A friend of mine from Louisiana, he does that all the time. As he's listening to you, every once in a while, he'll lean his head sideways and goes, I hear what you're saying. I hear that. I hear what you're saying. Yep. I love talking to that guy.
I've even seen some people, I guess it took me, it struck me so from out of nowhere, they just keep saying, come on.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I guess they're still in. They're still
there. Yeah.
Something I've had to really, I guess, be mindful of is like what you were saying with Howard and how he comes across, right? Especially with us having beards and mustaches. But a lot of times it's not so much in how my mouth speaks, it's how my eyes speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I have frustrated many an assistant employee, anything like that with my eyes. And I had not said anything
Right.
that would be, I don't know, that would be negative or anything like that. But from what I understand from those around me, my eyes speak very loudly.
Uh-huh.
And so I have to be very mindful of that. And so I think it's the same way, with whether we're in just like I can convey negativity that with that, you can convey boredom pretty easily there, right? And that draws out what you're saying. Oh, I don't want to bore you with that or anything like that. And if I find myself, checking out of conversations with the same way.
Yep. Exactly. And so
So
again, as long as it's about conscious effort. We get ourselves in trouble when we let ourselves fall into the subconscious, when we let ourselves fall into the autopilot zone, we let ourselves fall into, oh, I'm here, another networking meeting. I know all these people. I'm not going to learn anything new. And I'm just going to click in the autopilot. I can do this with my eyes closed. I'm going to tell you something right now. If you're in a vocation that you can do with your eyes closed, you need to quit. You need to sell your company. If you're an employee, you need to resign and you need to go do something else. Life is too short to spend any large amount of your time sleeping while you're awake. Okay? Because think about what that statement says. I could do this with my eyes closed. I don't want to do anything with my eyes closed. If I'm doing something, Tim, I want to be awake, man. I want to be, what in the world is going on here, right?
that's
And
right.
so when I go to a networking meeting, when I go to a group of people in a room, I'm there, man. And if I'm listening, I am listening. I am listening, I am listening intently. And as I get to know people better, again, modern world we live in, we've got to be aware of all of these things. But one of the things that I do that's, again, you don't want to get too close to people. You don't want to get too close to contact with people. But sometimes even just tilting your body as an angle.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That is almost a camaraderie thing. Like, you ever seen kids out on the playground and they're talking to each other and they kind of turn sideways and they lean in towards each other? These are all subtle cues to make people feel comfortable, to make them feel special, unique, that I am there to listen to them. There's some things I call them birthday gifts. You're born with them. You really shouldn't take credit for them. That's why I call them birthday gifts. You kind of showed up on the planet with them.
I like
right?
it.
Oh, I'm a good listener. Well, guess what? I've always been a pretty good listener because I love stories. I love nothing more. When they came out with what are those things called? The podcast, man. When they invented them things, I was in heaven. I love podcasts. I love listening to stories. And I love listening to people's stories. And so if it's genuine, it can be a game changer. It can take you places that, big dollars in advertising and marketing budgets will not take you.
That's right. That's right. Hey, I want to make sure that people know you're welcome to ask questions here. That's what this is about, right? I must ask you a question. And so we've got listeners, and I hope that you would be encouraged to go ahead and make comments, because we'll see those comments and we can answer any questions here. Otherwise, Jim and I can just keep talking about this because this is what we do, right?
That's right. That's right. But we want to listen. We love it. We love a question. Absolutely. Love a
Yes,
question.
that would be a lot more fun. But
That's right. That's right.
something that I want to get into, trying to find where I put it. Well, so categories of questions, about maybe how best to make transitions or try to go deeper in one particular area or another. You have any feedback on that?
It was, we just have a common theme going here, and that is preparation. Again, no one would ever even remotely think that they're going to do any type of job, position, performance. I mean, if you're a musician, you're not going to wait until you get on stage at your first performance and decide, that's probably when I need to learn how to play this bass guitar.
Right.
It's too late. That's not when you need to be figuring out how to play that bass guitar. You need to be practicing. You need to go up in front of some people that love you and care for you, and they're not going to make fun of you and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about playing it. What does this sound like?" Right? And so again, I can't highly put enough emphasis on this. This is just like any practice, any art, any skill set, any tool that you're going to have. You need to practice. You need to take it seriously. You need to prepare. You need to, like you say, before you go to the meeting, come up with some questions. Come up with some purpose for you being there. Come up with a goal, an outcome, some reason for you to be there. Okay.
Right. We've got.
I've been at networking groups where someone actually said this out loud. You ready? You ready? Here it goes.
Ready.
Hi, how are you doing? Nice to meet you. Why are you here? I have no idea. I don't even know why I came here. I mean, they verbally said that out loud. Maybe I should give him a kudo for being honest, because probably a lot of people feel that way. But he verbally said that,
Right.
All right, looks like we got a question.
We do. So Nate Munson asked, by the way, welcome, Nate. Thank you for being on the show or listening. How do y'all handle questions you can't answer? I have some experience with that, but I want you to go ahead and give your response, Jim.
How do I handle a question I can't answer? Well, I tell you that's I don't know if I can answer that. No. So
well, here's an addition. Nate says specifically a question that is protected IP or proprietary to your business.
Oh, well, goodness gracious! Then I would honesty is the best policy. I actually represent a product that is a copyrighted product. And believe it or not, Nate, I've had people ask me that very question. What's in your product? What you say you've got a proprietary mixture of it's a polymer. What kind of polymer is it? Where do you get it? I mean, people have asked me that before, Nate. And you just, honesty is the best policy. I say, well, therein lies the $1 million question, because that is actually what our product is. That is our intellectual property. That's what puts the value on our product. It is a unique product. I would love to tell you more about the product and what it can do and how it works and all that stuff. But yeah, Nate, I've actually been in a room where someone stood up and said, what is the name of the polymer that's in your product? Well, I honesty is the best policy, and I tell them right out, that's something that makes our product unique and special, and that's where the value is. And yeah,
I guess you could follow that up with, I'd love to tell you, but I'd rather show you.
Yeah, I can show you about the performance of the product and what it can do to help you in your life situation. But I just tell them, and sometimes, if someone asks something that specific and that direct, you have to ask yourself, is that a loaded question? If you Tim, you were in the financial advice business, right? Or the
financial advisor, right?
Financial advisor, right? And sometimes you got to admit, sometimes you were probably asked a question and you knew immediately, wait a minute, this is either another financial advisor, or what I'm saying? Like, this is a pretty direct question. Like this is a question that the average layperson would not ask, right?
Right.
A lot of my coaching clients were in the carpet and rug cleaning business, and we would talk about phone scripting. And sometimes, somebody would call up on the phone and say, "What type of emulsifying agent do you use?" Well, that's a red flag. Most homeowners are not going to refer to soap as emulsifying agent, right?
Yeah, really.
Probably that's a competitor, right? That's probably somebody that's giving you a baited question. And so sometimes what we would train them to do in that case is say, well, that's a very interesting question. You mind if I ask you why do you ask that question? Do you have
that was going to be my response too? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a emulsifying agent that you prefer? Yeah.
Yep. Great question. What makes you ask?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's a great
probably
question.
the simplest way to put it, right there.
Because I want to make sure I'm giving you the right answer, because it could go a couple of different ways. If you're wanting to know emulsifying agent, how it works, or the content of it, or the chemical nature of it, where is it manufactured? There's a couple of different ways I can answer it in respect to your time, if you'll let me know what you're actually wanting to know there. What about you, Tim? What do you do if someone asks you something that you don't want to share the actual question they're asking, right?
Well, right. And a lot of times I would say, hey, that, of course, I said earlier, it's a great question. Why do you ask? But let's say if they were asking for just blanket recommendations, what do you do in this situation or something like that? And I say, well, that's on a case by case basis. And we just have to look at your specific case in particular. And a lot of times they might be looking for stock tips or something along those lines. And even if they said it, would say, man, the stocks I do research on and analyze and put in people's portfolios may not be right for everybody. So I'd have to take a look and see what you're doing specifically and if it meets your goals. So I like what Simon Sinek says, start with why.
Yep.
If we can determine why they're asking the question, why we're in those conversations, why, we can direct or funnel our next question to help them meet a need.
That's right. That's right. And again, Nate, if somebody's asking me a very, very specific question that's really just zeroes in on proprietary information or formula or something like that, that's not an average question. There's something deeper going on there. They're either in my industry or something like that. And to be completely caught off guard would probably be pretty rare because I would probably have asked them some questions leading up to that to at least know. But it happens. It's happened to me before, Nate. I've had a total stranger walk up to me after I gave a presentation out in Las Vegas, walked up and said, what's the name of your polymer? Where do you get it from? You say it's from Norway. What's the name of it? What's the chemical makeup of it? What's its, well, I knew why they wanted to know that because that's the most important thing to know about our product, right? That's the magic part of it. So yeah.
Well, and a lot of times we find ourselves needing to redirect. So they're trying to funnel us into a guided a funnel of guided questions, to put us in a corner or to get information from us that we never intended to answer. And so a lot of times just knowing that, what the goal is, but you don't have to participate in that funnel of questions either. I find that I've got, you're very welcome, Nate. I have found where I've got some people, even on social media, that want to, they know a lot, right? But they want to share everything they know about what it is. And they ask me a question like, they want me to engage in this long response conversation, in the comment section, let's say. And so I've learned to even not necessarily participate, go to a place of helping them quickly, but not participating in whatever it is they're trying to drag me into. And it could be even a sensitive deal about, current events or something like that. And I always just try to back out of that and ask how best I can help them with their understanding of the topic or distribution of their information. So let's say they think they know a lot about it, and they very well might. I'm going to try to connect them to someone who either one has a authentic need for that information or a distribution channel for that information so they can feel heard. But I may not be the one who can give them the amount or the volume of listening that they need. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So have you ever been to a networking meeting and witnessed what I call a hit and run networker?
Yeah.
Hit and run networker. And what the hit and run networker is someone who's just running around the room, hitting people to get what they can from them and moving on. And they're never going to come back to that meeting ever again. It's called a hit and run networker. And one of the ways that I avoid a hit and run networker, and you can quickly find out if they are and they aren't by offering this. So say I have many friends in the design industry, they're interior designers, and someone will walk up and say, well, what do you do? I'm an interior designer. Okay, excellent. Hey, I've got a quick question for you. Do you know the new color for Benjamin Moore's Color Decks index card? What is going to be the new main color for 2021? Do you know that? And that designer's like, well, why would I want to give away that information? And then they're just going to run off and I'm not an encyclopedia. And what's a polite way of dealing with that? And so what I would always tell my designer friends, that's technically what you do for a living. It'd be like somebody coming up to you and say, hey, Tim, give me a hot stock option. Give me something I can make some money on. I want to make some quick money. Not, You're not going to get any benefit out of it, but you just tell me so I can go make some money, right? You
right.
say, that's kind of what I went to college for, man. That's kind of what that's what I pay the rent for. That's why I have an office, right? And so if someone's trying to pull a hit and run on you, well, you can deal with that by really simply just saying, that's a fantastic question. And listen, what I've got set up is normally I get $125 an hour for consulting about a project. And this is the interior designer. So what I would like to do is I'd like to offer you a 30-minute, absolutely free consulting. We'll set up an appointment for you to come by my office. We can sit down and we can talk about your project. First 30 minutes is on me. I normally charge, again, make sure she understands there's a value there. You're not giving something away for nothing. There's a value to it. I charge $125 an hour. I'll do a 30-minute consulting with you. What time do you have next week to come by the office? And you just figured out really fast if that's a hit and run networker. Because it might just be somebody that's in a hurry, and maybe they really genuinely just are in a hurry. And if they're a real positive a lead for you, then they'll say, "Oh, that's great. That's an excellent idea." I mean, as a financial advisor, if you told that to somebody and they said, "Great, I'll come by and see you next week, Tim," then you're good to go. You say, "Great, that's perfect. That's what we need to do."
Well, and something I would always share with them is, we have a process of helping our clients meet their goals. If you'd like to join in on that process, I'd love to work with you. I'd love to visit with you. And in fact, our conversations didn't cost anything. It was usually when we managed assets. And so it was a situation where I was trying to drill down to see what else I needed to help them with, and if that fit into what I could do for them. And so that's how I would always ask that or answer that. But now, since doing 3 million%, we've got people who are actually wanting my connections, let's say, higher level connections, but not participate in peer advisor or anything like that, And so I tell them, hey, and I was doing this even within the Chamber of Commerce, is, hey, my connections lie within the program. If I can connect you to those people, that's where they are. Right. And so if you'd like to join us, I'd be glad to plug you into those people. Otherwise, I can give you other alternate referral sources or something like that, and so that's kind of how I would play that. All right. We got another question coming in. Let's see here. So from Russell Duckworth, glad to have you on the show, Russell. Thanks for your insight. Share some thoughts for engaging online in a timely manner in a compliance-heavy industry. So where the expectation is that the message be pre-approved, but time is of essence, beyond easier to ask forgiveness than permission. Okay. And I'm going to take that question down just so we can be seen. All right. So timely response, but response would usually have to go through compliance. Jim, have you ever had to deal with the compliance side of that with your product or anything?
Oh, sure. Yeah. And what I do is I have a kind of a standard response email that I have had pre-approved. All of our, the powers that be are okay with me sending this out to anybody, which is just basically acknowledgement that I've received the email. Guys, there's nothing wrong with that. In an environment where they might send out 20 emails to 20 different suppliers, you definitely want to respond quickly. You definitely want to let them know that you've received their email. So many times we send out email, we don't even know if they got it. Did they get it? Did they not get it? Right? So something very simple that states that, has no technical information in it, that has no, that really isn't even specific perhaps to their question, but just something along the lines of, hey, Bob, thank you so much for reaching out to me about ABCD. I'm going to get right on this for you and look for my response in the next 24 hours and look forward to speaking to you again. Just letting them know you've started the engagement process, right? And when I get a response back like that, I don't think I've been put off. Actually, the opposite. It puts a smile on my face because I think, wow, this person cares about my correspondence. They've taken the time to acknowledge they've received it, and they've let me know my expectation that someone's going to get back to me as soon as they can, right? Or right away.
Well, and I'll tell you, I have to admit, I learned something when I started dating my wife, and I don't know exactly where she learned it, but a response that she had for me was just crucial. She said, "Would you like for me to acknowledge or respond?" And I was like, "Whoa, where did you hear that?"
Right,
You
right,
know? And I was like, I don't know whether to acknowledge or respond. I'm just blown
right.
away by what you just asked me,
Yeah,
And so, in doing that, though, I learned to translate that or do that in business too.
that's right.
So, Russell, for for the response to your question, I would first let them be heard, like what Jim said, let them know they've been heard. So acknowledge, and then maybe give them an expectation of how you'll respond. Right.
Perfect,
So
perfect.
let them know that they've been heard. And you can even let them know this has to go through compliance or something like that. Or, a big thing that I was always trying to do was schedule appointments anyway. And it just was a person I didn't have to try to come up with a reason to call them. Right. So you can get that done maybe through an email, or actually in my former industry, we were trying to keep it out of writing and schedule a call or a face-to-face appointment so that I could give them some compliance approved information. And so just you look at that possibly as the beginning of that funnel to start giving those responses, but acknowledge first, then respond. And you can give them that timeline of when you'll respond and maybe how they should be looking for it, whether it be an email, phone call, or maybe you need to schedule an appointment with them. I think that always did me well.
Yeah, I think anytime anybody asks a question, whether it's in person, via text, phone call, or email, the rules of communication apply. What did we just say? What is listening? Listening is an active sport, right? So as long as you let them know, as long as you give them the Howard Partridge, right? You let them know that you're listening and you're interested. I think you can accomplish that by, like you say, a very quick response, an acknowledgement, and then a thoughtful response. You see, a response takes time. A response takes thought. An acknowledgement really should be something that happens automatically.
Right. Well, and of course, I've seen the other side too, where you don't even get an acknowledgement, and you're like, hey,
Yeah, and then all bets are off. Yeah.
yeah. And you're like, well, maybe you try to give them the benefit of the doubt and say, well, maybe they've been off of social media for a while or something along those lines. And then you see that the little light or little green dot on their LinkedIn or on their Facebook shows that they're active right now, and you're like, wow, I'm just being ignored.
That's right.
That's right. So, I think it's important to go ahead and give that acknowledgement, and of course, we think that should come naturally, but for some, it may not. Right.
Yeah.
So, all right. Russell's also saying, so does I'd welcome a conversation with you at your earliest convenience seem benign and engaging enough? To me, it does. That gives you both an acknowledgement and response.
Russell, you must be in my email because that's I just sent that email this morning. Someone sent an inquiry about a territory, and that's exactly what I told them. I told them who I was, and I would love to have a conversation with them at their convenience, and they could text me, email me, instant message me, whatever they wanted to do, and let me know when they were free, and I would call them.
In some cases, some industries will have canned responses. That you could give immediately. At one of the brokerage firms I worked with at one time, at the first of every week, we got talking points, for responses to current events.
Mm-hmm.
And they were compliance approved responses that we could give, but it would be to try to generate conversation around that. Right. So, even if you work for a major institution that does or doesn't have that, maybe you could have a set of responses that you could go to. Right. And I'm not just talking to Russell here either. I'm talking to anybody that is in that situation, maybe to have a pre-planned set of responses that you give given the circumstance, right? So if, let's say, if you're in the mortgage industry or mortgage lending industry, you'll have a good idea of what you can, what you can't say, but maybe you'll have a good set of responses to offer for when asked about rates or when asked about current legal compliance or anything like that, or even approval.
Yeah, that I recall when, and this is going back a number of years, when I was in the market to buy a new home, and I'd made an acquaintance of a mortgage broker, and I sent him an email, and I said, "Hey, hey Bob, what's the latest rates going on a VA, 30-year, this much money? What's the best you can do for me?" That was a pretty direct question, to ask over email, and in his industry, and so hey, Jim, we've got a lot of great programs available for veterans right now. Let's set up a call this afternoon. Because again, in writing, you're not going to come back and say, "Oh, I think I can get you this," because you just put something in writing. You just put a prediction of outcome, right? And if he doesn't meet that outcome, that could come back to haunt him. And so he just came back, and it's so interesting when you see professionals, people who actually are professionals at their trade. And they have these things pre-thought out, pre-planned, and in place already. Just like you said, have some responses ready to go. I probably was not the first person that asked him that question. And so he had to have a response.
That's right. Even if you're not in an industry that does require it, it's still good practice to do it.
Yep.
Even if it was, let's say, carpet cleaning and restoration.
Yep.
It would be ideal to have that.
Oh, I've seen that. People send pictures of a spot, and not a good picture. You couldn't even. Is that an ink spot? What is it? Like? Is that one of those things where hey, look at this and tell me what you think you see? I see a crow. You're just looking at this thing on the screen, and you don't even know. You can't even tell it's carpet. It's just some strange thing. Can you get this out for me?
That's right.
And if you say, "Oh yeah, I can get that out for you," and you go out there and you can't get it out. I mean, you can't. If you have a canned, what? ProCare Carpet Cleaning is one of the most respected, well-educated carpet cleaning firms in Nashville. Let's set up a free inside inspection, and we can determine what we can do with your cleaning needs. That's a great response to that, right?
That's right.
I didn't put any expectations of outcome. I didn't make any promises, but I responded.
That's right. And they have an expectation of what you'll do next.
Yeah, which is come out and visit with them. I didn't promise to get the crow out of the carpet yet. You know what I mean? I just said I'm going to come visit with you.
That's right. All right. So it looks like we've got about 3.5 minutes left. Any questions from our viewers? Love to knock it out with one of those. But anyway, I just wanted to thank y'all for joining us. And Jim and I love offering our feedback on this. We've seen a lot. I know Jim has. And, we can get into even how personalities affect what our responses are and things like that, mirroring disc personalities or anything like that with questions too. But, there's so much more that we could even dive into on this. So thank y'all for joining us and being here with us. Jim, any last minute thoughts?
My last minute thought would be is have fun with it, man. This isn't a drudgery. This is something to enjoy. The art of human relational interaction, communicating. Enjoy it. Have fun.
That's right. Nate's got another question for us. As a mentor, what kind of questions do you wish mentees would ask?
Well, again, we talked about this last week, that quite often people don't know what they don't even know. In other words, they are in South Louisiana, we say that young man is ignorant to the level of his ignorance. Okay. He didn't even know how ignorant he was. Right. And that's a really scary place to be. So Nate, I would say that maybe that's a good thing for you, if you are a mentor, to understand that why that mentee is with you, and that maybe you can even provide them with some suggestions of information that might make their life better, that might make their current position better. And sometimes you do that without coming out and saying that's what you're doing. Sometimes you can kind of help them along into asking the right questions.
Yeah, I would say that I like that feedback. And one thing that I might add was, as a mentor, keep asking questions. Right. Keep asking questions to try to learn what their needs are. But as a mentee, a lot of times they don't even know what their needs are. Right. But they didn't know how to ask for that either. Okay. So if you keep drilling down on the why, why they do what they do,
Yep.
how they do what they do, what their hopeful outcome is, as a mentor, that should generate more questions to gather, to help provide information for that mentee. And then that should start unlocking some things for them to ask. Right. So that's a big thing about being a mentor, is you want them to generate questions to ask you.
That's right.
That's
That's
how you
right.
see it, Jim?
Last week we talked about that fountain you get at Home Depot that has the 3 buckets. The water pours out of the top one into the second one, and then the third one into the pool, right? And it's a little hose, and it just keeps going. People pay attention, and they will do what you do, and they will behave the way you teach them to behave. You want your mentees to ask good questions? Let them see you ask your mentor good questions. Let them see you ask your mentor good questions, and then you will teach them. And again, it's just like I said, boom, 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 and it goes back up the same way. Boom, 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 boom.
I completely agree with that. All right, we are at time. Thank y'all so much for joining us. This has been so much fun. I know that I get to have fun going back and forth with Jim here and just sharing our experiences, answering these questions. Our next live stream is going to be Monday, 2:00 Central Time. And so I look forward to having you there, and catch the replay on this. If you missed out on part of it, we'll be sharing it through the 3 Million Percent Facebook page, Tim Nichols Speaker and Author page, and in different groups and things like that. So we'll be sharing that out over the next coming days, and feel free to catch this replay. Reach out to ask us questions. We're going to place our contact information and pin it to the top of the comments. That way you can email us or try to schedule time with us where we could go deeper into some of these questions. Jim?
Absolutely. I can't encourage people enough to reach out. Hey, you might even learn something about a advanced technology, environmentally friendly protection system.
I love it. I love it. And of course, we'd love to have you in our peer advisory groups too. So anyway, go to those pages, seek us out. We look forward to pouring into you. All right. Y'all have a great day.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.